So what's up, YouTube fans? This is Steven here. You may notice we are obviously in a different place than we were before. Matt's shop got all filled up, which was cool. We are actually back where the car was when we first started. I built many cars in this barn, which is very cool. A little dusty, a little dirty, but a lot of good space, a lot of good usable space. So we're gonna finish up the third gen America Mobile in the barn from here out. We got the car back, it's up on the blocks, and we have a couple major things to do still. Fuel system, radiator, finish wiring up the ECM, get the motor filled with oil and primed, fill the transmission fluid, and we have to finish that awesome hooker exhaust on it. So one of the things that we want to talk about that I think is overlooked on so many projects is just preparation and going through things, getting comfortable with what you're going to be doing from start to finish. I think it's very important. It's a key part of any build, and it's always good to kind of get your bearings on where you're at and what needs to be done. So one of the things that we're going to kind of look at tonight and this next part of this build here is going to be the fuel system. So we went with all of Holley's great components. They have all the filters, they have the pump, they have all the lines made by Earls, all the AN fittings, all that stuff. I like to personally lay it out, get it all kind of laid out dry before I get going here. So we got the final pieces today from Earls, and we have our box here, which is all our fuel components. So here we go. We have all the fuel components laid out, like I said, piece by piece, to show us exactly how we're going to do it. So we do a little pre-fit before we do things and put it in. This way there's no real issues or missing pieces when I go to do it. So here we got the hose here. I got a -8 for the feed, and I got a -6 for the return. The -8 is a little longer than the 6, obviously, because I have to make some cuts, and it's going to be used a little bit more on the regulator, on the rail, and all that good stuff. So I have 17 foot of -8, and I have 14 foot of the return, the -6, because that's just literally going to go right back to, from the regulator all the way back to the pump. There's going to be nothing in between that. As far as filters are concerned, we have a 100 micron filter for the pre-pump, and then we have a 10 micron filter for the after pump or post pump. We have the regulator right there, which will be closer to the engine bay. We're going to run the lines right up to that, and you can see all these components are made by Holley. So there's the in and out there. There's the other in and out, whatever one you want to use. And then there's the return line on the bottom there, which again, we're going to use a -6. So I have all my in fittings, everything basically laid out. I have the fuel rails here. Here's the intake. Got the fittings on there. We're going to do the crossover in the back. There it is there. Okay. Same thing with the intake manifold as far as getting it set up, kind of laying things out. I didn't have this vacuum fitting to be plumbed back to the brake booster. So the other night I looked at it, realized I didn't have it, figured out what it was, and then I ordered it. And so it came in. So now I have it. The sensors are already mounted. Again, another step in the process to make things go a little bit smoother. On the rail over here, we have the block off there, the AM block off there. So that's how we're going to do that. So you can see, like I said, we lay it all out, kind of see where we're going to be, even down to the back of in the tank here. Okay, these are the fittings that are going to go onto the sump, and then the AM line is going to hook onto that. All right, again, we have a -6, we have a -8, return, feed. All right, so let's get assembling. So we got the -6 and the -8 line here. One's for the return and one's for the feed from Earls. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to use the old return line, the tape to, and then pull it through the frame so we can tuck everything up really nicely and keep it secure and out of the way of the headers and everything else that we got going on. So here we have the old return line right there, and we have the new hose right here. And what I like to do is I tape the ends. Obviously, you don't want any debris or any junk getting in there when you're pulling it through an old car or frame or anything like that. So I just tape it up with some simple masking tape. And then what I'll do is I'll tape it to this line here, so when I pull it through, I don't got to struggle getting it through the frame. So we'll get that moving right now. So here we got the old lines here. This one here is a return, and the one underneath this one here is the feed. These are the originals that came on the car. So we're gonna take these out because they're just rotting, they're old, they're just not great quality. We're gonna replace them with that Earls. And like I showed earlier, we taped it to the return, which is right here. So we're just gonna simply, very carefully, pull that through the frame, and that's gonna make for a really nice, clean installation, just like that. So there we go. There's our new return, there's our new feed right there. And just like that, we're in. So here we are underneath the car. We got the old fuel lines taken out, the hard lines that were like all rotting and falling apart. We got the sump here, which like I said, one's gonna be for the feed, one's gonna be for the return. Check off this sweet shut-off valve that they had installed. Oh, yeah, I know, don't get too excited. So here's the old pump, we're gonna take this out right now. So we got our intake all ready to go on. The one last thing we have to do before we put it on is we have to cut this rear crossover hose to get from one fuel rail to the other fuel rail. So quick little measurement here. It's a little bit offset, so I'm going to cut myself 11 inches just to be on the safe side, and then I'm going to assemble this crossover tube, tighten down all the fittings, and basically it's ready to go into the motor and be tightened down for the final time. Now that everything's been test fit, I have all my fittings on, vacuum line, map sensor, here's the fuel pressure sensor we're gonna run so we can see what's going on. It's ready to go on. So let's get this line cut, we'll get it installed, we'll show you how to do that, and we'll get it onto the car. So over here we have the two lines that are gonna be feeding the fuel system. This is the dash 8, which is gonna be for the feed, and this is the dash 6, which is going to be for the turn. So there we have our piece of hose that we just cut. So let's take this over and get this assembled. So we got our hose measured out where we need to cut it here, and I'm going to show you guys how to cut the line correctly. You basically want to tape it with plumber's tape first off, get your line marked. Okay, we're going to cut right in the center of that. Get a nice sharp utility blade knife, fully out, okay? And then you want to just lay it down, puncture the hose carefully. Just like that. And then give it a soft spin. And as you're spinning, you're cutting just back and forth a little bit. You want to go about 90% of the way through and just leave a little bit like that. Then what you want to do is you want to use a nice sharp pair of scissors and finish it off. So you get a nice clean, even, straight cut. Just like that. The next thing to do is to take the sleeve with your fingers, pull the sleeve back a little bit like that. Okay? We have our other fitting here. So this fitting is going to be installed just like that on there. So if you take off the other end of the fitting, and we're going to slide that down over top. So we have it installed already. Now we're going to install the ferrule. Here's the ferrule. Come on the end here. You want to go counterclockwise to get started so you can feel it engage, and then spin it. Make sure it goes on straight and doesn't cross thread. Goes on pretty easy actually. You want to go all the way down until you have about a 1/16 hanging over the edge like that. Okay, this is going to ensure we have a nice straight cut. Get your razor blade, pull it back to about 1/4 of an inch so you have just a little bit of a tip exposed, and then you want to hold it at 90 degrees and clean off this excess. just like that. See how nice and clean that is? So the next step is we're going to take the plumber's tape that we installed previously. You can pull that off now. Okay? You're going to take the hose, take the liner, and bring the liner back up. And you want the liner to stop about 1/4 of an inch before the ferrule, or even. You don't want it to be over. If it's over a little bit, then you can trim it off with a pair of scissors. So ours is about 1/4 inch, which is perfect. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is you would insert it in here with a clockwise position. Keep turning, keep turning. Beautiful. Until we catch about a thread. Keep turning. All right, time for the vise. We're going to go into the vise very carefully, just to put a little bit of pressure on it so it's not going to spin. And then you're going to just very carefully spin the fitting until it comes back together. I like to get the thread started with about 1 or 2 turns by hand first to make sure we're going on straight. There's not going to be any issues. And then I just very carefully tighten it down till they contact each other. Once you feel them connect, that's it. All done. You have one nicely assembled hose. So there it is. There's our crossover line for the fuel rails that we're going to install on the back of the intake. So we got the intake all ready to go on. I just want to show some of the pieces that I had to put on. It's a little bit easier to install some of these things when they're not on the car. So we have all of our sensors installed. We redid all of the fuel line plugs, wrapped them all off the car with the harness. We got everything installed as far as the 42-pound injectors, the fuel rails. All of the Earl's fittings are on there. If we work our way to the back here of the intake manifold, we have the vacuum port fitting installed there. Okay. We just did our line for the fuel crossover. All this stuff is all tightened. We checked it all, and we have our pressure sensor right there. This is going to be for the fuel pressure to give it the reading to the ECM. So all this is ready. We also tucked up the plug for the injector harness, which is right there, and we have everything ready. So here we go. We'll get it installed.